Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and a ton of tips to help you guys on your fitness journey. And I hope y'all are having a great week. We are in the week before the week. We are in the week leading up to Christmas. And I'll be honest, I feel like I'm already checked out for the year. Like I just want to just chill. And I'm not going to be doing that. Obviously, I'm going to stay focused on my job, focused on my work, providing value. I hear my email just ding, ding, dinging. I don't know what emails I'm getting, but I am not going to be checking them right now. Anyways, today's episode, I have like a couple of main things. My hair looks wonderful too, by the way. If you're watching me on Instagram, I just got done doing some rowing intervals. And if y'all haven't noticed, I've been recording my podcast a little bit earlier. If you watched live, I've really changed up a few things. And I'm going to go into starting off with a little bit about my journey. I know that a lot of you guys, maybe you're watching this on Instagram Live, know that a couple of weeks ago, I was in the hospital, and second time in a matter of 18 months where I was hospitalized and basically was like, what's going on? And thank God this time I've kindly figured some things out. But it did honestly make me want to record an episode where I'm going to talk a little bit about where I'm at with my own journey, but also go into a very important topic to talk about, which is hormonal fat loss resistance. It's just a fancy way of saying, are my hormones making it difficult for me to lose weight? It's a question I get all the time. A lot of women feel like they're kind of stuck in a place like, I'm not going to be able to ever lose this weight because my hormones are so jacked up. And I want to talk about that. So, but let me kind of give you guys a little bit of an update on me first. And that's kind of what really sparked this. So, and if you are watching, like I said, I'm doing these earlier. So you're going to have me drinking my coffee while I'm doing them. So I want to start by talking about my journey a little bit. I don't love talking about myself, but I think it's very relevant, especially if you are a female athlete between the ages of, I'm going to be honest, between the ages of like 20 and 40. I know it's a big range, but I think really in that 25 to 40 range is really where I'm talking about. And you are somebody who is maybe now working like a full-time job. You've got a lot of responsibilities. Maybe you've got kids and you're also training at a high level, all of these things. So I'm going to kind of rewind a little bit first and foremost. Last year, kind of give you a quick backstory. I had shoulder surgery January of 2023. And my ambitious goals were like, I was really feeling fit, but my shoulder had just been this like nagging thing that had been holding me back for like, 2 years. I couldn't snatch anything over 125 pounds anymore without pain. So I basically was like, all right, let's do the surgery, get it done, take the season off. It was the first year that I had actually told myself I was not going to compete in CrossFit. And my plan was to like take a year, allow my body to recover, like I'd never done that, and get my shoulder healed up and get back to training. Well, within 3 months of shoulder surgery, I actually started to develop really bad insomnia. I was waking up around 3 o'clock in the morning, couldn't fall back asleep. It happened right around the time change. I remember thinking it was just the time change, which also around that same time, I ended up tearing not just one, but both of my hamstrings and developing Achilles tendonitis 2 months later that ended up becoming a insertional Achilles tendinopathy that has like now a major tear in it. So it was like this just complete, I had been doing CrossFit for 14 years, and had only ever had this one injury that I even know exactly when I did it. Like it was this one injury that I had and never hurt myself. Like, of course I've had little tendonitis, but just to literally tear the strongest muscle groups. And mind you, deadlifting was my strongest lift. For my hamstrings to go, I was always posterior chain dominant. I could cycle a barbell. Like you give me a 2159 at 225. I was like in my zone, right? Like, but something was just like not right. So my doctor had ran some labs and we noticed that like my sex hormones were low, but my sex hormones had always been a little bit low. My estrogen was low, wasn't in menopause, but I just wasn't feeling good. That year, like 2024 or 2023, I was just like completely depressed. Like I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I don't know why I'm so broken, and not being able to train that I wanted to train. I started losing weight and then I was blaming myself. Like, am I doing too much in the gym? Am I not eating enough? And I'm so dedicated to those things that I'm like, no, I don't really feel like I am. Like just something's not right. fast forward to October of 2023 when I started to develop really weird swelling in my legs, like edema, like it wasn't normal. And I'm like, something's not right. Around that same time, I had developed what I felt like was called an exercise intolerance. I'm an aerobic athlete. I remember the workout I was doing, I think it was like a 6 by 50 calorie echo bike intervals. And typically I know my paces on that. I know how I'm going to feel. And I wasn't even going like for broke on them. And I just felt like I couldn't after like 2 or 3. I'm like, I can't do this. Like my body is just tanking. Ended up that weekend when I had that swelling, I showed my dad. I think I was up like 8 pounds of fluid on the scale. And he's like, go over to the hospital. They admitted me. They did all of this testing on me, basically to tell me, I don't know what's wrong with you. So follow up with your doctor. That's basically what I was told. They pumped me with fluids. They did a lot of testing. Everything just came back that I was in kidney, liver, and heart failure. Didn't know why. And they did mention at that point that I had a macrocytic anemia, but they didn't like emphasize that at all. It was just talking about like the fact that my body was like shutting down. Basically, they told me I was too stressed. So I left, and throughout this whole year, from October, Halloween of 2023, up until, a few weeks ago, long story short, my doctor got deployed and I was seeing like his associate. And I'm sorry, this is getting long, but I wanted to talk about this stuff first. Been going through all of this stuff all this year to try and come to figure out like what's going on. And my doctor was out of town. So they sent me to one of his like whatever associates. And she referred me out to 3 different specialists, all of which could not get me in until like next year. So I'm like, okay, this is great. Well, let me just kind of go into what happened a few weeks ago, why this episode is where I wanted to go with this today. So I guess about maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago now, I started to develop the same exercise intolerance that I was getting last year, but I wasn't getting any swelling. So I just chalked it up to maybe I'm just like a little overtrained. I took a deload week, and it was getting worse. But now I was getting other symptoms like heart palpitations, just feeling like really tired, but also very anxious, just tense. Like I was getting, in fact, for months, I'd been dealing with what felt like just chronic pain in my legs, like almost like a restless leg syndrome where I was having to take Advil to go to sleep. All of this crazy shit. So fast forward to a few Saturdays ago when my body tanked on me and I ended up in the hospital and found out that I was so anemic and I needed to get a blood transfusion, iron infusions. Essentially, thank God I have a friend that kind of explained these to me, but essentially like it was like I was walking around as a blood donor and I have no idea how long I was doing that. But the doctors hadn't been addressing the anemia, and it finally got to a place where it was so bad that my body just tanked. And so now it kind of gave me a little bit more of an insight as to what's going on with my body. And now, obviously, with nutritional changes, with trying to find the root cause of the anemia. So they're like ruling out like if there's a GI thing going on. Now I feel like I have some answers. And that's why I laid the backstory, because all of this might be leading back to just some nutrient deficiencies that could be coming from my gut. And maybe my body isn't absorbing nutrients the way that it should be, particularly something like iron, which I do eat a ton of iron-rich food. So giving you guys a little bit of an update on me, things are on the up. I am still keeping it a little bit easier in my training. I still don't have a definitive answer to the cause of the anemia, and I have a follow-up with the hematologist this weekend or this Friday. But I have just been hammering iron-rich foods, trying to prioritize sleep and recovery. And I'm starting to feel so much better. Like I truly am. I feel different than I felt in so long. So I don't know how long I've been that way, but I just know that I'm happy to start to be feeling better. That was a little bit of an update on me, and I will keep you guys posted. So, and it's also why I'm increasing my calories, because I'm trying to do all of the little things. And, I've been curious, so I've been eating over 3,000 calories a day. And if y'all know, I've been on the gains train. I'm like, why am I like not gaining weight? Now I think I've kind of figured some things out, and I think things are hopefully going to go in the right direction. So, I wanted to kind of segue this now into why I talked about all of that and going into, this is why it's so important to be an advocate for yourself and take labs. Because the reason I ended up going to the hospital was because the week before I knew I needed labs done, and I went to urgent care and they did labs there. And she told me that I was anemic, and she told me that my kidneys weren't looking like they were functioning very well. So if I had waited to see my PCP and then go, it would have taken me forever. Um, it's really important to understand that getting lab work on a regular basis is how you can prevent things like this. And this was a serious thing, but I'm talking about for those of you guys out that are dealing with hormonal stuff. So first and foremost, why is lab work where I'm going into today when I'm talking about hormonal fat loss resistance? Why did I open up with all that? None of that has to do with fat loss, but it has to do with, hey, there was an underlying thing going on that wasn't being addressed. And if you are somebody who thinks you are dealing with hormonal fat loss resistance, okay, you don't know, you are assuming unless you've had lab panels ran. So it's really important to, if you are suspecting something like that, not just to be assuming, but to actually go under the hood and see what's going on. Because just saying, my hormones are off. Well, do you realize you have a lot more than just like two hormones? Like your body's not just testosterone and estrogen. There are other things that are going on in your body that are hormones. So we have to look at everything. And maybe it's not hormone related at all. Another reason why I'm speaking to this today, my issue, I was focusing so much on bringing up my estrogen levels, and my problem was a blood problem. It was an anemia problem. So is the estrogen problem really the problem, or is it the anemia? So knowing what's actually wrong is important, and you can only do that with lab testing. So let's kind of get into this a little bit. If you are not regularly getting a yearly lab panel done, you should start. Okay. If you are over the age of 25 specifically, like I guess under 25, yes, it's good. Or if you're training at a high level as an athlete, you definitely should, because that's going to ensure that you're not going too long without finding something. A year in the beginning is good. If you get that year, if you haven't had a panel done in a long time and you decide to get one done, you want to check everything. Just check everything. Just get under the hood, bite the bullet, and get it all checked out. This way you can ensure that you're not missing anything. All right. So some of the things that I wrote down here, and I'm not going to go through the whole, like all of the different panels. If you want that, I have a link to my email and I will help personalize one for you, because I look at the person's lifestyle and what their symptoms are to kind of obviously make it cost effective. But some basics that you want to start with are your complete blood count, so your CBC, a lipid panel to check your, like your triglycerides, cholesterol, all that stuff. Your metabolic panel, which will check for like liver and kidney function, inflammation markers such as like CRP and your creatine kinase. Thyroid panel, looking at TSH, T4, free T4, T3. Sex hormones like testosterone, progesterone, estradiol, prolactin. Other things are like your A1C, your iron levels, your ferritin, vitamin D, vitamin B. I could go down a whole list of things, but the goal is you just want to get a big picture view of everything. This will help you see not just like if there's a problem, but where there might be something that you could optimize. And optimizing your labs is the best thing you can do to prevent ever having a problem. So even if like something's borderline low, like vitamin D, you might not see that as a big deal. But if you continuously have a low vitamin D, it might start to impact other hormone systems. So you want to optimize when you can. And when you're in that state of where things are still just in the low normal, you can actually fix things with like maybe a little bit of food changes or lifestyle changes. When they now become like where they need attention is normally when we now have to start correcting symptoms. Okay. So, and this is where people now are going into things like, obviously HRT or, hormone replacement therapies. They're going down different routes. So when it comes to labs, okay, so what you want to do is get that complete blood panel, like just get everything checked. All right. Some things that you don't need to be focusing on, because this is important too. The second piece of testing is a lot of people have gut related issues. This is more common than you realize. You might think you're the only person, but people don't talk about their poop because nobody wants to talk about their poop. But going into GI testing, you can go down that route. It's more expensive, but like getting a good GI map done wouldn't be a bad idea, just to make sure that you can rule out that there isn't anything going on absorption wise in your gut. But I would not go down that rabbit hole before first addressing food and just kind of looking at your diet and your lifestyle to see, because oftentimes, even with those types of tests, the fix is usually, hey, you're under too much stress. Your body's so your gut is a muscle group. It's a smooth muscle. You're under too much stress. Your gut motility is too slow. We got to get things moving more. So we can often fix that stuff with diet anyway. So if you've optimized your diet and you're still having gut issues, then you might want to go into that. What I wouldn't recommend is any of the gimmicky shit. Okay. So don't do the like online finger prick stuff. Go ahead and get the full thing done. Don't do any of like the DNA, like what foods are best for your blood type. Even food sensitivity testing is somewhat garbage because your body is going to change so quickly. Your gut microbiome changes. So the foods you're sensitive to now, you might not have been sensitive to 6 months ago, and you might not be sensitive to 6 months from now. Your enzymes are constantly changing. So I don't really love people going down that route. I think better options for that types of stuff is actually just looking at maybe doing an elimination style diet if you think that you have a food that might be inflammatory for your body. But again, this only happens if you've already got your nutrition dialed in from a food quality perspective, and you're getting in enough nutrients and whole foods, and from a quantity perspective, knowing that you're getting enough of the right foods. So that stuff matters first. Okay. So now let's go into talking about this hormonal resistance. Let's just say you're somebody that comes back and like maybe your thyroid's out of whack. Okay, well, let me just be honest. Most people that have an underactive thyroid, they're on a supplemental thyroid medication, which regulates thyroid. So you are no longer hypothyroid. Even though you have something artificial in your body now that's going to regulate it. But let's just say your blood levels are coming back. Maybe you have some underlying inflammation, maybe possibly, some of your sex hormones are off, maybe low testosterone or whatever it might be. Maybe you have some of these things going on and you're like, is this why I cannot lose weight? Okay. I want to explain what's going on in your body in easy terms for you to understand, so that you understand what matters most and how to overcome this battle. First and foremost, if your hormones are off, okay, there are going to be some things that are a little bit harder. If you've got like low testosterone, if you've got, high estrogen, obviously building muscle might be a little bit harder for you. The best thing that you can do to boost that is to sleep more and strength train, right? Like, so we want to look at, okay, yes, it's going to be harder for you. You have to put more emphasis on those areas of your life, along with diet. We'll talk about that next, okay? But what's really going on when we have hormonal problems is it really does come down to a calorie equation. And with hormonal issues, oftentimes the amount of calories you are expending is somewhat going to be down-regulated because of the hormonal issues. So things aren't quite working as well as they should. Systems aren't really working. It's the 97 Chevy that's running, but it's not running on all 4 cylinders like it used to, right? So in order to fix that, we've got to kind of fix how we can, or we have to try and get your body to obviously optimize. So that's where you might have to do some supplemental, therapies, but also just looking at lifestyle training and nutrition. So there is some level of you're going to be burning a little bit less calories with these hormonal imbalances. Okay. The other side of this is, well, there's actually 2 more things I want to talk about. Insulin resistance in particular. So if you have like high A1C, which is like a marker of like, obviously if you're pre-diabetic, if you are somebody who is borderline insulin resistant, it does make things a little bit harder for weight loss, because essentially your body's not burning through energy the way that you want it to. Again, the solution to this is you just have to be in more of a calorie deficit, or your caloric needs are lower than they should be. Okay. And then the other side, like I said, this is the third part of this, I'm going to call it like the mediator. It's like in the middle. So you got the one side of things, like, yes, hormones are going to impact your body's ability to burn calories and also like build muscle. Insulin is also going to impact, if you have insulin resistance, you're not as insulin sensitive, you're not going to be burning through energy the way that you should, which kind of impacts obviously the muscle building and the fat loss. But on the other end of the hormonal spectrum, which is where I think a lot of people struggle but don't realize, is how it impacts your appetite. And this is a big thing. Most people who struggle with hormonal problems have very inconsistent appetite cues. They're either starving and craving things, or they're not hungry at all. And they have no idea how much they're eating, and their mood's off. They feel like shit. They're not motivated to do anything. Their energy's low. That's the bigger problem with these hormonal problems. And it's why it's so important, if you can do one thing, if you want to take control of your body and overcome hormonal fat loss resistance, it's you got to be dedicated to keeping a food diary. A food diary is not about you being perfect on macros or you being, eating this much protein or, whatever, but it allows you to optimize your diet for your needs so that we can help not just get you to lose weight, but also help looking at some of the underlying reasons of why you might have hormonal issues and start to look at making fixes to these things. In fact, one of my clients recently just showed me, she just got testing done. She got a full blood panel done and she got a DEXA scan done. And her last tests were like in August to now. And it was amazing how different everything was looking. So with optimizing your nutrition and your training, you can often fix some of these things, okay? But it does come down to you have to be dedicated to keeping a food diary. You can keep running yourself ragged trying to figure out why you can't lose weight. And you can keep just saying, it's my hormones, it's my hormones. Or you can take some ownership and control. And it's not that difficult to do. A lot of times why people struggle is because they're not ready to change. And you have to ask yourself, am I really ready to accept that this is going to be the rest of my life? I'm going to walk around with like no energy, feeling like dog shit all the time, not seeing any progress on the scale, feeling like I don't want to do anything, hating the clothes that I'm wearing? Or am I willing to do something about it? Now, I know what you're saying. I keep a food diary. Now what? Okay, so this is not a plug for coaching, but this is a plug for, if you don't know, you probably should hire a professional who knows. If you want to take ownership on your own, it's important to understand that you need to know what your caloric needs are for your body, which means you need to optimize your calorie intake, what good quality food looks like. Okay, so like making sure that you know how much and where your best sources of specific foods are, and that you're getting enough of them. And then how to adjust that stuff based on how you're feeling. Okay, not just what's going on with the scale, but how your body's actually responding to that, how your appetite cues are, how your energy levels are, how your gut's moving. All of that stuff matters. So that's where having somebody else take a look at things can be helpful for you. It doesn't mean you can't do it on your own. In fact, I kind of am. Like you got to kind of know. I have a coach too, but I kind of know what I need to do as a professional. But not everybody is a professional, right? So you need to know what you need to be doing. And this is where it's like doing it on your own isn't just, oh, let me just follow this diet plan. Oh, let me just cut my calories. Maybe it's the carnivore. Maybe it's the carbs. Maybe it's this. All that shit doesn't matter. Okay. So if you want to truly beat hormonal fat loss resistance, here are my tips. Number one, actually find out if it is a hormone problem. Get the lab testing done first. Because if everything comes back normal on your labs, it probably isn't a hormone problem. It's probably up here, okay? There are some other stuff going on, maybe like cyclically with your period, you might have some hormonal stuff. But number one is get a lab panel done. Number two is you got to be dedicated to keeping a food diary. Not telling you that you should be eating a specific amount of calories just yet, but you got to be dedicated to knowing how, and you don't have to keep it in a food app. Maybe your structure is like you eat the same thing every day and it's just like clockwork, whatever it is. You got to find a routine to be able to monitor how much you're eating every single day, calorically and in the amounts of the different macronutrients and micronutrients. And then from there, you got to know what your body's lacking and how to adjust it. If you have those three things, you have the key to beating hormonal fat loss resistance. Okay. So what I'm going to do is in my show notes, you will see a couple of links. One is if you want a 20% off discount code for Inside Tracker to run a full blood panel on you, go ahead and send me an email, Cheryl at MyFitBodyRx. I'm offering 3 people a free discount code. And if you want a little bit of help on your journey, I'm actually not taking on any new clients for the rest of the year because it's Christmas, not until next year. So you can get on my waitlist. There's a link there for my waitlist for either my essentials or my pro options. You can go ahead and fill that out. And number 3 is that's it. I don't have a number 3. Those are the 2 things. Get your blood work done and reach out if you want some help. That's all I got today, guys. So hopefully you guys got some value out of this episode. And I will see you guys all next week, Christmas Eve. We're going to talk a little bit about beating holiday weight gain, kind of that, what to do after you indulge a little bit. And this isn't just because it's Christmas, but it's any time of year. You go out for a couple of drinks or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, I feel like guilt. What should I be doing? So that episode is going to be dropping next week on Christmas Eve. But until then, have a good week.